for staying tuned. On this side of the studio here, governance and stakeholders engagement is our focus today. You will recall that 2 weeks ago, across the 40 constituencies in the state, lawmakers engaged their constituents, and even at the local government level, you have stakeholders engagement going on, consultative forum ahead of the preparation of the budget. All of this. Today we'll be assessing how effective are these engagements in ensuring that the people understand the policies of government and also the government understand the needs of the people. To take us further in this conversation, we have with us the SSA to the Governor on Political and Legislative Matters, Saeed Olushola Balogun. You're welcome to the conversation.
Good
morning.
Yeah.
Let's begin this conversation this way. How would you define an effective governance in terms of how important stakeholders' engagement is, both on the side of the government and the people?
Okay. Well, for something to be effective, it means, if I speak, you hear me, and in both directions. So, and that's why you have the executives. While the budget presentations, prior to the budget presentation to the State House of Assembly, the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget had stakeholder engagements across the divisions of the states to ensure they get inputs from citizens and residents of the states on what their expectations are and align that with the plans, of the government, because the government is for the people. We also have the engagement that takes place within the state's infrastructure itself. So the state organogram, you have the respective agencies, ministries, departments and agencies. They also have their own internal consultations to ensure they understand the needs of the respective officers that represent the unit. So for example, those in charge of transportation, they already have inputs from LASMA, they have inputs from other transport agencies, so they understand what their needs are, for the next year's budget. So you have early preparation. So that communication, effective communication, is like a 360-degree approach, whereby it's not just the government to the people, it's also the government to the workers, and then you also have the legislative arm that have also taken up the initiative this time around to even focus on food security, so it is a continuous engagement. Judiciary also have their own, like you have separation of power, they also have their own engagement with their community. So when you have this 360 degrees form of communication, you can be sure that you will get most of the information you need to make Lagos State a 21st century economy.
Okay, these are regular engagements by different tiers of government, like you have pointed out now. Do you think it's doing enough to strengthen the relationship between the people and those in government?
So progression is very important. So you always want to say, how were we some years back and how are we now? So for example, we've had now the Citizens Gate, which is an additional portal for people, the citizens, to reach out to governments, and through that means you can be sure that whatever information is submitted on that portal, either by means of recommendation, that the government is going to get to know about it. You also have in the Office of Civic Engagement, which is part of the Office of Political, Legislative and Civic Engagement, where I work in. We have engagement with people, also with people with needs, where they provide some sort of financial assistance to those who are, deeply in need. We have the different agencies, like in the health also, the LASHMA, health management. So you have them, getting out, having outreach to people to let them know that they can get an health insurance package that can secure them from unexpected expenditure during either childbirth or illness and things like that, unexpected health situations. You also have recently we had the building authorities engaging those in the building sector, the property development sector. So engagement takes place across all MDAs of the government because you have stakeholders, and in some areas, these stakeholders are niche players. So for example, if I'm not a builder, if you are having a program that's meant for builders, we would like to have more in the construction industry attending that. So you have specialized engagement as well. So that's why I said this engagement takes place across all MDAs. And if you observed, for a lot of time, we also make use of the billboards across the states in partnership with LASA to ensure that at strategic points, the citizens get this information about all forms of engagement. So there is no ministry, department, of agency of the state that holds a public stakeholder engagement that does not make use of all these billboards across strategic locations to ensure that people have this information, and they also make use of the print media, make use of the electronic media to push this information out. And especially to Mr. Governor, is always on top of this. His social media page is always full with information of what goes on every day and what's coming up.
Joy, I'm sorry, I have a follow-up to that question. Is that an indication that government is always on its toes and, of course, implementing various policies to actually meet the people at their point of needs after this engagement?
So, when you have you have different forms of engagement. Engagements come planned, and you also have the unplanned. I give an example. When we had the failure of the bridge at Alakpere, you understand? So such a thing will not come in your normal
planned engagement.
Planned engagement.
It is sudden.
But as a responsible government, you took action, pulled down the bridge and made an alternative, pedestrian, zebra crossing with speed control to ensure pedestrians can go. So that's an unplanned situation. And today I can say that overhead bridge, pedestrian bridge, has now been completed and open for public use. So engagements comes both in a planned fashion and in unplanned situation. But what's very important, as we know in government, is if you're going to do anything that's going to involve spending money, then we also have to ensure that there is a budget for that. And that's what you saw the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget doing by engaging stakeholders. That's like the planned approach.
Okay, still talking about engaging stakeholders, from the governed to the government. How has this engagement been able to build trust? Does the people trust in the government? Has it been able to help the people hold the government accountable? Has it been able to help the government be transparent to the people?
So whenever you have these engagements, you have participants at the events. They have opportunities to engage with the government officials. They have opportunities to ask questions, and they also give feedback. And this feedback are usually well taken. So you give feedback, it's noted. Sometimes you even get the response to your questions, right there. And while some are things that they will have to take as a feedback and go back to the drawing board to plan for it.
Okay.
All right. Okay, these engagements at different level of government, state, local, and of course, what level. How can we use it in such a way that we can begin to change the attitude of the people? Maybe at times when a particular infrastructure is provided in your community, how do we begin to change the psyche of the people in such a way that they will start taking ownership of this infrastructure and realize the fact that they were constructed with their money?
Thank you. So as part of the activity of the Office of Civic Engagement, we do have engagements with CDCs, community development.
Okay. Community leaders.
Yes. We have engagement with community leaders periodically. And at the local government level also, they also meet with the CDAs, which are the community development associations. Those are, smaller associations, marking some residential communities. For example, if a transformer is donated or installed in a community, then they ensure they have the CDAs are aware of these projects, And prior to the commencement of project also, you have the respective agencies engaging the CDCs, the local governments, the traditional rulers, religious institutions. So you have this broad consultation that takes place. And as such, when these projects are also being commissioned and handed over, you have representatives of the respective groups within the community take part in this activity so that they are aware that you have a responsibility to support and communicate with the government also wherever you have a feedback.
That's not where I was actually going.
Okay.
Assuming a road is constructed in a particular community now, oftentimes we have seen that people, they park indiscriminately, they dig indiscriminately. How can we begin to vandalize, to change the orientation of our people in such a way that, okay, as government, we have done our parts. How do we take ownership and ensure that this particular infrastructure is well maintained?
Yeah, so, what I would say is what the government does is to ensure this education happens. And then we also put in place security measures, like we have the Lagos State's LSNC, Neighborhood Corps, to provide local community-based intelligence and support the security. So they can identify easily because they're closer to the community. They can see when something is being moved, earlier than, waiting for the larger police force. So in respective communities, you have this local engagement. So what government, is doing effectively is to empower those at these communities to be able to act on information that they get, communicate in a good time. For example, recently you had the like a short fire outbreak. It was reported, and then fire service were contacted. So we have citizens doing this, already, and we only continuously educate the people to continuously do this. So we have the Lagos State Emergency Services as well. We have a single number hotline for people to call government in case of emergencies, either accident, fire, natural disasters, anything.
So 76712?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's that communication that we owe the citizens that, know how to reach us in any situation. And we have the necessary technological platforms, and we have the necessary human resources, to respond to these incidences in a timely manner. On the waterways too, we have the Waterways Authority, always out there to provide, immediate response to incidents that are reported. So it's an open communication platform that allows the citizen to engage. And what we do is to continuously educate the citizens through public platforms and also through the CDAs, like I mentioned, the CDCs, and the respective MDAs also. Whenever they have a project, they also have their own. So it's a continuous education process. And we believe with that, we will have improved responses, like we saw even when the Third Mainland Bridge was recently repaired, and we had some stores that were placed there for emergency lighting. You had some people removing them, and they were caught. I want to believe that are stopped now. So it is that continuous, and we will also praise those who on the social media who create this awareness as well. So once these things happen, we see a lot of videos going viral on WhatsApp platforms, on social media handles, alerting people that don't allow this to happen. And we take this feedback and we make good use of it.
Okay, I have a question regarding social media that you just mentioned, but since we are still talking about the people now, you have spoken extensively on what the government is doing, what government has done. On the part of the people, what is expected as regards our civic responsibility, aside from voting? How are you also ensuring that people know that they need to participate in governance?
For people participation in governance is done through awareness. So you have, of course, you have the projects. Whenever a project is taking place, these projects are communicated to people. You have the recent commissioning of the Red Line as well, with the Cowrie card, and Mr. Governor has gone out, to demonstrate to people. And so I believe people get educated, and there's also peer education as well. So for example, if you're going to make use of the rail system in Lagos or the transport system in Lagos, we know there is a cowrie card. There is a high-level enlightenment that has gone, there's a middle-level engagement, and then there's also the low-level engagement, where if I'm your friend and you're probably coming to Lagos for the first time, I'll let you know that you need a cowrie card. Or if you arrive at the station, the officers at those stations are also educated to let them know that you need a cowrie card. It's not a cash trip or something like that. So every opportunity MDAs have to educate people, they always do that. So we don't close the door to education. And like I said, education is also a function of what services are you trying to access, because you probably cannot know everything all about the city, but what you need as a student, for example, the information is made available. We ensure the universities, they communicate. So all the government agencies are well primed, and they all have public affairs unit, that are primed to ensure effective communication of activities of their respective MDAs and engagements, apart from the activity that happens at the Office of Civic Engagements.
Okay, my question is like a follow-up to what Joy asked earlier.
Okay.
And I know it's a joint effort between the government and the governed for us to have a fruitful engagement from time to time. When you look at most of our communities these days, we seem to have much of substance and drug abuse. I want to know what strategy government is using to address this problem, and what should be the responsibility of the people when they see such in their communities.
Okay, thank you. So in fact, recently part of the engagement, we had the Ministry of Youth, Social Development, hosting a program, though it was online, and this was a mental awareness program. And the focus of that program was to bring to limelight the correlation between mental wellness and then the use of substances. So we have this continuous education, and we have a unit within the recently created by Mr. Governor, sitting in the Ministry of Youth and Social Development to ensure that the use of drug abuse, substance abuse, that's addressed, and the medical facilities are also provided to ensure that there is a rehabilitation program. And part of the activity of the government is to, the things that could trigger, like sometimes you say, an idle mind, So it's Devil's Workshop, thank you. So you also have a lot of activities going on sports development. And good enough, this ministry responsible for sports is also responsible for youth and social development. And part of the plus agenda for Mr. Governor is the plus there is for taking care of those who may have felt excluded socially.
Inclusion.
So it's for social inclusion, exactly. And a lot of activities have taken place in the last 1 year on grassroots sports, tennis, skating boards, lots. I can't give a count of it. Probably if we have the Ministry of the Youth here, there are uncountable sporting activities. They go on. Fitness activities take place monthly, even from the civil service perspective as well. So things that could trigger people opting for drug, the alternative to it is also what the Ministry of Youth and Sport Development has been providing to people. After all, when they are engaged and they see value in their time and they see value in their output and their talent, you will get better outcomes. And as we speak right now, there's also Afropolis taking place, which is for culture. So you have youth, talents, a lot of things going on. So when you are aware that there is an alternative, a better alternative, then you make it easier for people to make informed decision. So it's not only about saying don't use drugs, but let's give the youth
what are the options and the platforms that you're providing
alternatives
for them?
to explore themselves and come out better.
You talked about social media and giving kudos to
Yeah.
social media crusaders. But again, social media can sometimes blur lines between public opinion and misinformation. So how do you filter these informations to ensure that you have a constructive dialogue engaging stakeholders?
There would, irrespective of social media, any media platform can be misused. So what we would always ensure is that we communicate, and then so when there is the right information, and then there's always the wrong information that will go out, and when the right meets the wrong, the credence, the quality of the information we give out will usually let people know the difference, that no, this is a misinformation and this is the correct information. So if the misinformation comes out, first before the correct information, then you have the respective MDAs, take ownership of responding to the information, and they provide the facts, that are verifiable, to the members of the public. And with that, you build trust. Because, if you say this happened, and then you now get the real sequence of events from those who are responsible for the correcting the information or providing the right information, then you will know, oh, this source is wrong and this is the right source. And that also builds followership, because if I know, okay, the next time if I need the right source of information on, say, transport in Lagos, then, I'm going to follow Lamata or to get the right information, and not just that, person out there that has dished out the wrong information.
Okay, still talking on trust. Unlike what we have in some other states in the country, we can see what the government of the day is doing with the taxpayers' money. We see our roads, our hospitals, our schools. But yet, we do not have some people or some Lagosians in the tax brackets of in the tax net of the state yet. Are there engagements at different levels of the state to ensure that these people have a change of mind and, of course, do the needful as regards their own side of the contract of transforming Lagos?
Okay, so I'm not a tax expert,
I know.
But in general, what you would always see is that
I just want to
Lagos
speak
Inland
to the
Revenue
engagement
Service,
parts
yes,
at the
they
community level
have-
to ensure that these people have a change of
For
mind.
them to see the
Yeah.
reasons why they
So yes, so what I say is the LIRS, takes care of this aspect, and they work with other agencies of the government to ensure that they can continuously. So a lot of events that we have, you will find LIRS, probably educating people, and it's a continuous education. You go on billboards, you see them educating people. You see a project that has been commissioned, you see a message from LIRS letting people know that, look, this is your tax money working for you. And of course, if you didn't pay your tax and they say this is your tax money working for you and you're using it, then it's, triggers something in you that you need to pay your tax.
In terms of government policies, are there times where the people's views differ from government policies, or government makes the policy and doesn't sit well with the people? How has the government been able to handle it?
Okay, so, well, in general, I talk about people's views. So if I view the camera from my sitting position, I'm going to see something different. And if I view the camera from the side, it's going to be something different. So always in the community, you will not have everyone viewing the same projects or the same information in the same perspective, same way. So there will always be a difference. And that's why what we ensure is we provide clarity. And then irrespective of your viewpoints, the clear information is out there, and even the person who decides to use the information otherwise will still be able to say that, look, this is the clear objective. So once the information, we just ensure that the information is very clear. and unambiguous. That's the responsibility. And then there will be different viewpoints. And then sometimes you have viewpoints changing. That's why you also have debates. You will have people will debate either on their platforms, on their WhatsApp platforms, on their social media pages. There will always be debate on X and other things. So these debates also form part of opinions moving in one direction, and then opinions changing. And then you see someone who spoke against something, maybe. I give an example of the red line. When Mr. Governor started this red line, I had some people say, oh, why didn't you finish the blue line before you start the red line? And that was an opinion. But there is the clarity, which the government also provided, that this is an opportunity to start this red line. And I'm sure, those who held the opinion yesterday that you should have waited will now see the wisdom in the project starting when it's started. So the opinions change, and like I said, government just ensures that we give clear information, we state our objectives, our goals, and we let people know this is what you're going to benefit if this project comes on board.
All right. People are usually very quick to condemn governments anytime they run foul of the law. In some part of the state, we have seen that people find it very difficult to obey simple instructions, as simple as using the pedestrian bridges provided by the taxpayers' money for their good. So what kind of engagement do you think we should start having to change the mind of those people? Because we have a government in place that values the life of the people. And of course, that has been shown through the provision of those bridges, yet people have refused to use it. So what kind of engagement do you think we should have to change their mind?
Giving the pedestrian bridge as an example, the first level is, the need for people to, value themselves. That I've got a life, and putting myself on an expressway where there is a pedestrian bridge provided, I'm putting myself at risk. So this education is there. We also have enforcement that takes place, periodically, to let people know that they should not cross this road. And when they are caught, there's a mobile court to try them as well, to let them know that, look, this is an offense. You also have, in some areas where we have pedestrian bridges, we have high barriers installed at the medians of the road to let you know that, do you want to climb this thing just to cross when there is a pedestrian bridge? So we don't stop. It's not just enough. We will have wished it's enough to say, don't do it, but there are also measures in place to prevent it or make it extremely hard for you to break these, to break this law. And also, what I would enjoy people is, if I, value and understand the risk of crossing a road, if I'm on the road as a pedestrian and I see a fellow pedestrian who wants to cross the road, I can also educate him by saying, friend, let's go on this thing. It doesn't cost you anything. Just some extra minutes, or even a form of exercise. You take some steps up, you burn some calorie, some steps down. You're also done with the calorie rather than risking your life on the road. So what I personally will say is, we can also educate our peers as well, because peer education, I believe, works a lot and has a multiplier effect. So if I educate someone and that person also goes ahead the next time to educate someone, and then you have that engagement, going on for a lifetime.
So at the end of various engagements, how do you ensure that the feedback gotten from the people are, put into use, that people see that their ideas are, they can see what they have suggested to the government?
Okay. So, for example, on our Citizens Gate platform, when people submit either complaints, we treat complaints and we give feedback. We let them know, okay, we've passed on your complaint to the right agency, and when there's a feedback from the agency, we also let them know. So we have the dashboard that enables us to track what information has been provided and what's the feedback and what's the closure rates. So we get all these information together. On the second part also, you can't really, in governance, there's really nothing you can hide, So if you put forward a suggestion, for example, if it's taken, you will either see the feedback that something has started on it, or this thing is not being worked on at all. And you trust. If I'm passionate about it, I will repeat the complaint. And for those who write also, we accept petitions. So some petition directly to their legislators, and then most likely they will hear, their petition being read on the floor of the House during the plenary sessions. And while some write petitions, some come to Alausa, they come to submit petitions, and all these things are, treated. So, of course, treated might come out with different outcomes. So it could be treated that, okay, this has been noted and it's planned for the future, and it could be something, this is noted and it's already in the pipeline. So you have different forms of engagement, and in the end, if your request is a project, projects will go through their life cycles.
So how crucial is the role of CDCs and CDAs in ensuring that some of these engagements are very productive at the end of the day?
What we do is to have that continuous engagement with the CDCs and then local government with the CDAs. And what I would say is, part of the Teams Plus agenda is security and governance. And I would like to say that Lagos State's security improves continuously, and we believe these CDAs and CDCs play an important aspect in ensuring that Lagos works. So we continuously engage them, and they also give us feedback, and they have multiple means of giving us feedback. Like I said, it's not a monologue, it's a 360 degree. So that means a CDC can also approach an agency. If I understand that this agency is responsible, for example, for waste management, I don't need to go round and round. There's a means of accessing the waste management office, and then they report to them, or through the local government, they report to or even sometimes directly to the PSP that is responsible for that area, and then they get the issue, sorted out. So it looks hierarchical, but it's widespread and is across all levels. So you could meet at any point of any touch point of the governance, engage, get your feedback, and get your issue resolved. So government has enabled MDAs, to take care of issues that got to do with them.
Okay, still talking CDCs and CDAs. Oftentimes, we have seen that government will award a contract for a particular infrastructure, and we see youth in that area going to disturb the contractor that you must pay this, you must pay that, forgetting that the infrastructure is going to be to their own advantage at the end of the day. What are you doing to change this narrative?
Okay, well, probably if we get, such report, because what we have experienced is that communities are usually receptive of projects, and all projects that I've witnessed, being commissioned by the state government, they usually have the support of the community.
This thing is real. If you ask some of your contractors,
so we will need
they demand money from them and they disturb them from working.
We will need specific, you can't generalize something like this. So what I would say is projects get started, they get commissioned, and in the commissioning phase, you have stakeholders engagements. So if you have such, then probably those people are not stakeholders, if we have such. Because we've got a lot of projects that have taken place across, for example, the red line. We had over 4 bridges, crossing the lines. There's community engagement. All these areas are very important areas in Lagos as well, and the project went on successfully. In fact, there are areas, urging the government to come to their aid also. They want more government projects. They've seen some, but they want enough. So I don't see how we will get to such community and say, now the project you've asked for is
It's here.
here, and
Yeah,
then they will
opposite.
say, no, you can't start the project. Probably, maybe some years, many years ago, but with the kind of engagement we've had, and with the Teams Plus ensures that there is, widespread engagement from health, entertainment, education. There is a it's a deeply connected. So you can imagine a community that have been asking for schools, and then you get the government contractor, to go and probably reconstruct the classrooms. You even see some where they would even welcome them if it's a distant location. But where there are challenges, contractors will have means of laying their complaints to the respective government agencies, and I'm sure when they lay such complaints, the complaints will be addressed.
Well, thank you very much. We've been speaking on governance and stakeholders engagement. The SSA to the governor on political and legislative matters has spoken extensively on this, and I hope you've learned a thing or two. And also, the government has a role to play, but you, as a citizen, you also have your own role to play. Aside voting, like the question that I raised earlier, aside voting, you need to get involved, in governance. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
The conversation continues after this. Stay with us.